Man, I got to tell you this one story. This big naked lady that I had to wrestle down on the street.
The Catwalk Podcast showcases the greatest of the people of the Permian Basin through partnering and conversation with high-level leaders, social entrepreneurs, nonprofit leadership, and industry executives.
Welcome to another edition of the Catwalk Show. I'm your host, Jay Whitlow. Thank you so much for joining with us. I want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe on all of our platforms. Our guest this week is the former chief of police for the city of Midland. Seth Herman has managed over 200 officers and 53 civilian employees since he was sworn in as police chief for the city of Midland on December the 18th, 2018. Seth is a 25-year veteran of the Midland Police Department and has served in various units from patrol to canine, from gang units to narcotics. He is leaving the Midland Police Department this month and will assume his new role as the Chief of Police for the Lubbock Police Department. We certainly appreciate his leadership for over the last 25 years and wish him well on his future position. Next up, enjoy my conversation with Chief Seth Herman.
Elevate your operation with Performance Chemical Company, the pioneers in redefining chemical solutions for the oil and gas industry in the Permian Basin. Unveiling groundbreaking ideas since 2017, our dry chemistry plant stands as a testament to innovation. Our products and services revolutionize water treatment, production, midstream, and saltwater disposals. We're your strategic partners in optimizing investments, slashing operating expenses. Performance Chemical Company. How you get there matters.
Hey, welcome back to the Catwalk, everyone. I'm your host, Jay Whitlow. Thank you so much for joining with us. As always, joining me across the room over there is the great Chris Stegall. Chris, what's up?
Not a lot. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to see you. And our special guest is sitting right here to my left. This is the former chief of police. This is my good friend, Seth Herman. Seth, welcome to the Catwalk.
Thank you for having me, Jay. Glad to be here.
We are excited that you're here. Thank you, first off, for everything you've done for our community. And serving here, and it's going to be our loss to have you leaving, but congratulations on getting the step to Lubbock.
Thank you.
And today was your last day, right?
Actually, yesterday at 5 o'clock, they cut off my key card access, so I'm pretty sure yesterday was my last day, officially.
So you are unemployed right now.
I am unemployed at the moment, yes.
Right? I think McDonald's might be
I think they pay pretty good.
You're just like most people now. You know, you're just an average Joe right now. We could drive an Uber. You could drive an Uber.
Uber's available.
Ubers are available. I don't know how good my license is, so I don't know.
Do you have to get your license changed?
No.
Does it look different?
No, it doesn't look. It shouldn't look any different. No, there's no difference between the cop's license and everybody else's.
Well, there might be a difference between my license.
Well, yeah, I
haven't renewed mine since the 70s.
Oh, well, no, that's good to know.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do while we have you here is we've got some concerned citizens, some viewers, who have sent us in some questions, and we would like to Chris and I would like to ask you some questions, if you're okay with that.
Oh, very good.
Feel free to answer.
Sure.
So how many miles over the speed limit can I drive before I really get pulled over?
None. So
no miles over?
There's not a lot of leeway there. It just depends on the circumstances and the roadway and how many cops are out there. Technically, by law, can't go 1 mile over the posted speed limit. Now, different cops are going to give you different leeway. Just depends on the circumstances.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Chris, what do you got over there?
So, is it true that if I steal a police officer's badge, I own him now?
Oh, no, that's an old law. It's outdated now. Actually, he now owns you. And then any other livestock that you possess becomes his as well. Yeah.
Livestock?
Livestock. Yeah, livestock.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's Texas, so.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hey, what's your favorite, or do you have a favorite asparagus recipe?
No, I like it just butter and some lemon. I actually just like the smell of it when it comes out, to be honest with you, oddly enough.
That's gross.
Yeah.
That's gross. Yeah. What's the weirdest thing you've seen someone do at a stoplight?
I don't think we can say that on the air.
It's a family show.
It involves two people. I don't think, yeah.
That'd be funny. Use your imagination, those of you who are watching and listening. Okay, Chris, what you got?
All right, so if you're pulled over for speeding and you tell the officer the reason I'm speeding is because I really have to poop, do you get out of it?
No. That actually happens quite often.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
Do you say show me?
No, I've run into that in the past,
Right.
and I've usually if it's not too egregious an offense, I let them go ahead and not follow them to whatever bathroom they're going to go to. They at least have to make the effort, but
Wow.
it does happen quite often.
100 push-ups or 100 sit-ups?
I'd rather do push-ups. I got short arms.
Short arms?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do 100 push-ups?
Yeah, I can do 100.
Wow, I can't. I used to could, but I can't
Look
do
at those arms. Of course he could do 100.
Well, again, I'm compact. I have short arms, so I don't have that far to go down.
Now, is it true you're the shortest officer?
No,
Or were the shortest officer?
no, I'm probably the shortest police chief, at least for a while.
Really?
No, I'm not no, I don't think it's a
Like
statistic.
in Midland or of all time?
Well, I don't know.
In Midland. Yeah.
I just know that I saw you the first time I heard you speak. You talked about your shortness,
Yeah.
and size and everything and stuff, and I said that's pretty cool that he's confident in that he can talk about that, and so I was like, oh, I got to ask if you're the shortest one. How fast have you gotten your police cruiser up to
Ooh, the old one's like 140 on a pursuit. Yeah.
on a pursuit? Not like on a
Not just hanging out.
Hanging out on
going
the
to-
loop?
for a burger. No, nothing like that. It was in the course of my duties, but yeah,
140?
140. Yeah, it gets a little scary.
what does that feel like?
Like, oh no, I hope this goes okay. And again, you have to have a long straightaway and no traffic. Yeah.
Wow.
So, okay, one last one here for me. Do ticket quotas actually exist?
No, absolutely not.
What?
No.
I thought that was a thing.
No, it's actually it's kind of against the rules.
It's against the
You
rules.
can't have
Unwritten
quotas.
rule, or is
No,
it
it's a
written rule?
legitimate rule.
It's a
Yeah,
legitimate
there's no quotas allowed. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the best place to get a donut in Midland?
Oh man, you would ask that. I will say I've heard. Now I don't eat donuts because obviously there's a cop stigma to that. Shipley's is really good.
Shipley's is good.
Yeah, Southern Maid's really good. I like all of them to be. I mean, I don't eat them. I've heard. I like the
Got
smell.
a few days, you can enjoy donuts
Yeah.
right now.
I would inhale a donut. I honestly will inhale a donut.
Do you like to cook?
No, not at all.
No?
No, I don't enjoy it. But
So you rather eat out or have somebody cook for you?
I'm pretty simple. So just a hamburger patty and some greens. and-
Really?
yeah, I don't get real fancy.
No,
I'll cook
no
it.
healthy.
No. Well, I mean, as much as I can. I don't
Yeah.
get excited about it.
Does a red car really attract cops' attention more than other colors?
Actually, a red car will attract everyone's attention more. So the size of a
Really?
vehicle and the color of a vehicle, and actually the make of a vehicle, very often will give it a stigma and suggest that it's traveling faster than it is. Now, it's not legitimized by radar, but yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Well, my wife had when we were going to college, and we were at Tech. We were traveling from Dallas to Lubbock, I-20. I guess before we get to Lubbock, and she would get behind a semi, and I guess kind of draft behind them and hide.
Yeah.
The cops would still find her. She had a little red little Toyota Celica. And this was in the late '80s.
The 80s,
and
yeah.
she's like, "No, they're not going to get me. They're going to get the
truck."
The truck.
Yeah.
Sure enough. But I do have a funny story that I want to share with you and get your opinion on this. So, I was dating my wife. We were at Tech, and she didn't have her headlights on her car. She was leaving the library, and I'm following her, and the cops pull her over. It might have been campus cops. I don't know, but they're all the same to me, right? They have lights on.
It's on campus. It's a campus cop.
And so he pulls her over, and I pull over too because I'm following her. It's my girlfriend. I get out of the car and ask him, she didn't do anything wrong. What's up? And he said, get back in your car right now.
Yeah.
So I said, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll get back in my car. He goes up to the window and he says, ma'am, you need to turn your headlights on. She goes, okay, thank you. And he goes, now I'm going to go deal with your boyfriend. So have you had instances like
yeah.
that where somebody just cavalier jumps out
And
and
the bravado of I'm
takes
gonna
care of their girl or
I'll
whatever?
tell you what's going on. No, you won't. So yeah, that happens a lot. That happens a lot.
Now, Chris shared the deal about poop, but on a ticket, what's the weirdest excuse you've ever heard on somebody wanting to get out of a ticket?
You know, it's not weird. The thing that throws you off the most is I pulled somebody over, and this wasn't too long ago for speeding through a school zone. I walked up and I said, "Do you realize that you're speeding through a 20-mile-an-hour school zone?" The guy goes, "Yeah." I said, "Is there a reason for it?" He said, "I don't like school zones." I said, "Right on. Sign this." So
right on.
that was it was honesty. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, the weird stuff is like, yeah, I have to go to the bathroom, or it's always I've got to pick my kid up, or I'm late for a meeting. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I do want to ask you before we get into your journey, with the narrative that's been going on around the country in the last couple of years with police, has that changed the way you've led here? Have you had to pivot in that, or have you seen an effect to the force here by what has happened globally?
Not so much here in West Texas. Obviously, we're still very, to use a coin, the same term everybody else does, conservative, but very law enforcement minded. It hasn't affected us as much, but there has been a ripple effect from around the country. And Austin's not far down the road,
Right.
and they obviously suffered it egregiously during certain events and time frames, and we felt a little bit of it. But I think overall, the recruitment of officers has become more difficult over the last, let's say, 5 years at least. I think people are more exposed to what officers go to on a daily basis. It used to be you watch the TV show and it was all the fluff and the fun stuff.
Right.
But now it's the negativity and what officers actually deal with. And so it's the recruiting effort is a lot more difficult now than it used to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we said earlier this was your last day or two in Midland, and you're leaving to go to Lubbock. So most of our viewers and listeners may know your story. Some may not know your story. So why don't you walk us through, like, where are you from? Get us through what maybe grade school, elementary school was like growing up, and then get us to high school.
So I actually grew up in El Paso. When my dad got out of the Marine Corps, he joined the Border Patrol, and so they were from Brownwood, and so he trekked my mom 500 miles to El Paso, and that's where my sister and I grew up through our elementary, junior high, high school years. Just like everybody else, big city. I didn't realize how big it was, but it was a great experience because I had a lot of friends from different backgrounds. El Paso's kind of a melting pot. You have Fort Bliss, so that encourages a lot of people from all across the world to be there. But it's just like any other child. Well, I say it was like any other childhood. This was back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. So I graduated in 88, and back then in high school, you could go across the border to Juarez and have fun and
Cause trouble.
cause trouble. Well, yeah, cause trouble and not have to worry about being kidnapped. And
Right.
So I spent a lot of time over there, unfortunately, my last 2 years in high school. Wrestled some in high school. And
Really?
we
Were
had
you good?
I thought I was. I don't think I was as good as I thought I was or wanted to be, but had fun with it. Made really good friends in wrestling.
Yeah.
Very difficult sport. I think it creates in you a desire to be tenacious and drive through pain for sure, and like losing weight, in a very shortened period of time. But went from there to Sul Ross State University in Alpine, Texas. I like to refer to it the Harvard of West Texas. My daughter reminded me the other day when she was applying for colleges that almost 100% of applicants are accepted at Sul Ross. And I pointed out that not 100% graduate. So needless to say, she's not going to go there. But I had a great time in college. I actually have a associate's degree in farrier technology, which is horseshoeing. But I also, at the same time, I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. So,
That's impressive.
I don't know how impressive it was. It was difficult. I will tell you, getting a degree in farrier technology is more difficult than getting one in criminal justice.
Well, it's better than my degree. Mine was in home ec.
Oh.
College. Yeah. So
So you can cook, huh?
I can cook.
He's really good at making muffins.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So the running joke is my diploma says Texas Tech College of Home Economics, but my degree was Bachelor of Science in Human Development Family Studies.
Okay.
But all you see
home economics.
is home economics. So Chris over there walks by one day and he's like, home ec? Would you have to carry an egg around and a kid? And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much kind of the way it was. So
Yeah, I doubt that. But.
wow. So what was those classes kind of like?
Oh, it
to
was
that degree?
It was a lot of labs, a lot of shoeing horses, so ranchers in the area would bring their horses in for the students
Right.
to shoe, and they were always those broncs that nobody else wanted to touch.
Did you ever get kicked?
Oh my gosh, yeah, all the time.
Really?
I
Where?
In the knee. I got kicked in the knee one time hard enough to get flipped. I kicked in the head a few times. Got kicked in the chest. Oh yeah,
You wearing a helmet or?
Oh heck no, there's no protective gear. You had to
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is in the 80s. So
Yeah, it's the
they
80s.
didn't
You're
care.
in a pair of protective, shoeing leggings. That's about it. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade there. I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, the 80s was the era of just rub dirt on it.
Oh yeah,
Spit on it, rub dirt.
There's no protection.
no.
But I watched those videos,
Yeah,
right, of them doing horseshoeing and stuff, and I've always wondered, like, how often when they buck, when you've got it between your legs, like, how often are you just hitting the groin with just full force?
Constantly. The scary part is when you get a nail set where it's supposed to be, because you nail a shoe on.
yeah.
Well, when you set it, the end of the nail comes out the side of the hoof. They don't stick in the hoof because that's how you hurt a horse. But when they come out, you actually nip the end of it off and smooth it off. Well, when that nail's still sticking out and they start pulling that foot, it'll rip through your leg and your hands and everything else. Yeah.
Well, public service announcement. You didn't know you would get this kind of information on the
Oh,
podcast.
yeah,
here,
not from a former police chief who.
So why didn't you do rodeo or
I
anything
did.
like that? You
I
did.
rode some bareback horses. Again, wasn't as good as I wanted to be, but got bucked off a lot and
Yeah.
kicked in the head and everything else. But
Did you compete like for money
I
and stuff?
tried, but man, I think I was more in it for the fun than the
For the
glory,
girls?
than the glory. Yeah, that and the beer rather than the glory. So
There you go. All right. So you graduated. What year did you graduate?
I graduated from college in '92.
92. And then what'd you do after that? What was the journey like?
So my last semester in college, I interned with the Brewster County Sheriff's Department in Alpine, and as soon as I graduated, the sheriff at the time gave me a full-time job, so I stayed with them for about a year and a half. And I had a buddy who had come out to Midland that we used to hang out in Alpine, and he said, "Hey man, if you come out to Midland County Sheriff's Department, you can make a lot more money." And I was making, I think, $700 every 2 weeks in Alpine, and I came out here and like doubled my salary. So I worked for Gary Painter for about a year and a half, and then transitioned over to MPD 28 and a half years ago, and been there.
28. What was that first week like when you joined
The PD?
here?
Oh wow, it was a different world.
That would have been what year?
That would have been in 1995. 1995, I joined, Midland PD. My first field training officer, I was his first probationary officer, and we kind of were looking at each other like, what do we do now? And we got through it. So, it was exciting. It was exciting trying to absorb all that information.
After that first week, did you think I'm going to go back to shoeing?
No.
Or rodeo or anything like
No,
wrestling?
Nothing like
Anything
that. No. I was dead set on being a cop.
Really?
I had actually originally I had a plan when I was a kid to join the Marine Corps when I got out of high school. My dad had been in the Marine Corps. He's like, "No, you won't. You're going to go to college, and then if you want to go in the Marine Corps."
Right.
And so that was the plan all along, and it kind of fell apart. I actually, before I got out of college, right before I graduated, I called the OCS recruiter, Marine Corps OCS recruiter in Albuquerque, and he was on vacation, believe it or not. And when he was going to call me back, I went to a wedding, my cousin's wedding in Kansas, and met my wife, and I was like, well, he's going to get married to go in the Marine Corps, so.
So when you go to Lubbock, Lubbock is known about, their police force is known about boasting about their academy.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a pretty intense academy. I got a couple buddies who've gone through it. How's the Midland Academy? You don't really hear much. Is there one here?
Oh, yeah.
How is it comparatively?
Well, I've never experienced Lubbock's Academy, but I imagine they're very similar. There's very paramilitary organized, kind of the boot camp mentality, but more of a training environment. So we cover all the same topics. It's TCO requirements. So Texas Commission on Law Enforcement mandates what courses have to be trained on and tested on and passed. And we add more stuff to that because our policies, and then anything having to do with combat firearms, we include that in our curriculum. So
Right.
I imagine the two are probably very similar.
So in that, you said 28 years. How long were you police chief? Since 2018, I think?
Since March 20th of 2018.
2018. Okay. So before that, I think your bio said you were in divisions like narcotic division, K9. Walk me through some of those. Like, what was your highlight in each of those divisions? Because you weren't always just writing tickets.
No.
A lot of people think that's just what police do,
all we do,
sit around, eat donuts, and
Write
give away tickets, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through, what were some of those things that you were a part of?
Well, every officer with MPD, when they start, after they get through the academy and successfully complete the PPO program, then they go into a patrol. They join a patrol company and patrol squad, and you're there for at least 2 years. So I spent my time on working evening shift and night shift, and had a lot of fun. Night shift is the best shift to work because it's busy up until probably around 3 o'clock, and theoretically all the good people should go home, so you just go out looking for the bad people.
All the good people go
Yeah,
home.
in theory. So did that for 2 years, and I transferred to a unit called the substation unit at the time, which was a mobile command post that we would drive into high crime areas, and we were bike certified, so we get out on bikes and sneak up on burglars and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. Went from there, became a detective in narcotics, and worked narcotics for 2 years. Again, a lot of fun, a lot of jumping out, a lot of cases that are pretty exciting, pretty in depth. You have to use your mind quite a bit and work confidential informants and do undercover buys. Simultaneously, I joined SWAT, so I was lucky enough to be on SWAT for 16 years over a period of my career. And then from Narcs, I promoted to sergeant, went back to patrol, and then became the K9 sergeant, and then absorbed the gang unit, and then did that for a few years, became a lieutenant, went back to patrol, then went to special investigations over narcotics again and some other teams, and eventually made deputy chief. I was deputy chief from 2014 to 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's some of the weirdest stuff you've seen?
Oh, man. You know, it depends on your definition of weird.
Well, the reason why I ask you that is my nephew is a couple of years into the Dallas Police Department.
Okay.
And Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Christmas, whenever we see each other, he's like, man, I got to tell you this one story. This big naked lady that I had to wrestle down on the street, and stuff. And then he's showing me pictures of something. And I'm like, hey, well, let's watch this show Cops. And he's like, no. I've lived it. So Cops ain't nothing on the show. So, but he's always telling me about just the weirdest things that's happening. So what would be some of those that you're like, this is odd?
Here's the problem is after 2 years as a cop, you're like, man, that's some weird stuff. After 28 and a half years, you go, nothing's weird.
Nothing phases you.
The stuff that at the time seemed either odd or took you back and you went, oh my gosh, now you're like, it's nothing. But I mean, it's stuff like you described, you're fighting naked people or, somebody's. I had pursuits back to back in 2 different nights and chased both suspects in 2 different vehicles, 2 different suspects to the same neighborhood, and both of them jumped out of their cars and ran and jumped on the same guy's roof. And it was a 2-story roof. So the first night I get up on the roof and I handcuff the guy and the owner opens the window. He's like, what's up, man? I'm like, well, this dude ran on your roof. All right, well, come on in here so you can get out. The next night he goes, okay, this is enough. Why do you keep chasing people to my house? I'm like, dude, I don't know. It's like a magnet for these people. But it's just, the really, the stuff that you really go, oh my gosh, is not, the average citizen is going to look at it and go, that is tragic and unbelievable. Like just mass incidents that it's hard to describe sometimes.
Right.
But the weirdness is stuff that you don't want on your show. It has to do with all kinds of stuff.
And it's usually after like probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning, yeah.
It all goes crazy.
Oh man,
south.
People doing drugs, they are not right.
Well, in 28 years since you've been on the police force, I guess that's what we say here. What are some of the changes you've seen? Obviously, has drugs gotten increased more, decreased more, crime? I mean, what have you seen changes in those 28 years?
A lot of it's societal changes. I think society is accepting things right, wrong, or indifferent that they weren't accepting before. Drug use is just rampant. It was always a problem, but it was specific types of narcotics. It was heroin, it was powder cocaine. Marijuana has always been prevalent. And our proximity to the border makes us, kind of a way station for bulk drugs that are then dispersed throughout the rest of the United States, us and Odessa. But the type of drugs that we're seeing now are far more powerful. They're causing a lot more violent crime. So I think what people don't understand is you can attribute probably 90%, 95% of the crime that we deal with in some form or fashion. There's a nexus to narcotics, either use or trafficking. And as you can imagine, the drugs that are on the streets now are very powerful. So they're lowering people's inhibitions and they're allowing them to do things that normally they wouldn't do. And so we're seeing a lot of violent crime related specifically to narcotics. That's probably one of the bigger criminal elements that I've seen increase. And here recently, as we kind of touched upon, the influx of certain groups from foreign countries are causing more and more problems, organized criminal activity, bulk oil thefts, bulk gas thefts from convenience stores, and then large-scale narcotics trafficking and human trafficking for that matter.
You said it was about 95%?
I would, yeah.
What would that other 5% be then?
Domestic.
Just domestic crime?
Domestic crime. And then you've got a percentage of criminals that are just, to be honest with you, sociopaths. So that's a whole different element. That's a very small group, but that's just a whole other category.
Can you speak a little bit more to what you're talking about on the different groups that are coming in, maybe the immigrants, or can you speak to that? Like, what are you seeing?
Well, as you can imagine with the open border, and we'll call it an open border because
Sure.
it's what it is. We're seeing a huge influx within the Permian Basin of Cuban and Venezuelan immigrants, not all of whom obviously are engaged in criminal activity, but there are large contingents that are organized criminal groups, and they're stealing oil by the hundreds of gallons. They're rolling around and stealing, in vans with bladders in the back that they roll up over the opening at a convenience store where they actually store the gas underground, popping the top and siphoning it out into these bladders and taking off. And
How long does that take to get that out? Then?
You would think it would take a while, but it doesn't take that long. It does
Really?
not take that long. We've caught quite a few groups doing it. Or the guys and gals have caught quite a few groups doing it.
Right.
So they're involved in that, and then also skimmers on gas pumps, ATMs. Venezuelans are very much into the same thing, but they're also getting into narcotics trafficking.
Wow.
And there's kind of a component there that some of that money is being funneled back to the Venezuelan government.
Right.
So that's a little disconcerting as well.
What should we? I know you're moving on to Lubbock, and so I think you still do care about Midland. You've been here so long.
Absolutely.
What should we, as citizens, if we were using this as a public service announcement, what should we be looking for?
Well, obviously, it's just like with anything else. We encourage citizens to be mindful of their environment. I think very often we get wrapped around looking at the phone, or obviously way too much, because a lot of people are still looking at their phone when they're driving. I would encourage you not to do that, but just being very aware of your surroundings. There's a lot of stuff that goes on if you'll take the time to look and be mindful of it.
Right.
And it's kind of the whole your mind's eye can see a lot of things that you may not recognize or allow yourself to recognize. And if you'll just kind of open up and look and absorb, people have a sixth sense, and they can very often, if the hair on the back of your neck sticks up, there's a reason for it. But I would encourage, this is one of the bigger issues that we've dealt with, and every community I've been in has dealt with the same thing, is people leaving their guns in their cars, and then cars getting broken into, and then those guns are ending up in the hands of criminals, and they're being used in egregious crimes like aggravated robbery, murder. And so, it's being mindful of the fact that, yeah, your vehicle's parked in front of your house, but you've got valuables in there, and if they're in plain view, then they're going to get stolen. Right. There's bands of, I would call them youths, but early 20s, teens, who are going around checking door handles.
Right.
And so, take your valuables inside.
I remember you spoke. It's been maybe a month or two at the coalition, city coalition, youth coalition, and you were talking about the responsibility of parents. I know you probably have gotten phone call after phone call of, "Hey, come get my kid and make them go to school or make them do something." And can you speak to what you view as an issue that parents need to take responsibility for? Are you seeing that more than you did when you first got into the force?
I think it is more prevalent, and I think a lot of it, and I don't like to use the term wokeness, but I think a lot of people are trying to deal with the discipline issues with their children in more of a mindful, kind of synergistic way rather than making the kid do something. I mean, that's what I've seen become the bigger issue. But when I was on the streets, you get calls from dispatch, "Hey, so-and-so needs you to go to this house because their 9-year-old won't go to school," or their 13-year-old's back talking them, and as I probably presented in the coalition meeting, my old man never called the cops.
No.
And he never would have said, "I just don't know what to do with him." He knew exactly. No. And I think a lot of people are confused that if they use any corporal punishment against their children, they're going to go to jail. That's absolutely not true. It's, the law recognizes that's necessary. And obviously, if you go beyond what's considered, common sense and applicable, that should be applied, then you do face some kind of consequence. But that's very rare and it's extreme.
I am a dad of 2 daughters. I think you've said you have a daughter too. I don't know how old she is, but if there's someone listening who's got young teenage girls, what should, as parents, we be telling them to look out for? Because trafficking is huge. It's increasing. What should we be looking for and teaching our girls to be prepared for?
A lot of that obviously is being honest with them. When they hit a certain age, and I kind of leave it to parents as to when they think that is. You don't want to scare an 8-year-old, but when they start getting into their teens, they definitely need to understand the dangers. And a lot of that has to do with the internet. A lot of these trafficking events that we're talking about start with internet, start with somebody online who's trying to entice children. It's not, everybody thinks it's a big epidemic here within the continental United States. It's more relegated to immigrants. So people trying to get to the United States, those who are trafficking them into the United States are also then turn it around and traffic them in other ways, sex, labor, that sort of thing. So, but for your daughters, even for your sons, the internet, it's a double-edged sword. There's some positive that comes from it, but there's a whole lot of bad, a whole lot of evil.
Right.
So my encouragement to the parents is be mindful of what your kids are doing. I mean, keep an eye on them, track them. I encourage parents to be prison guards. Toss their room every chance you get to, and look at their phone and keep in connection with them. Track their movements. Know where they are and who they're associating with. Because it's very possible that the person that they're going to hang out with is not someone of their age, but a lot older who is manipulating them.
All right, so let me ask in this way. Looking back over your 28 years, let's get nostalgic for a little bit. What's been some of your joys, some of the things that you've been proud of in the department?
Well, joys has been working with the men and women of the department throughout my entire career. There's always been a number of those that you looked at as the quintessential police officer. And when I say that, those are people who are still compassionate, still caring, but are willing to put their life on the line for people they've never met. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's our role in society. It's hard for people to fathom that the men and women of our department, every other department, every day go out realizing, I could die today, but that's my job. And I think, we don't need to get into other people's stuff, but there was an instance not too long ago that took us back about 50 years when we, and I think probably what I'm talking about, but when we saw officers not moving in to save lives, that's against our ethos, and that's not what we're made for.
Right.
So I'm most proud of the fact that regardless of how many officers were short, and when I took over as chief, we were 50 officers down, and
really?
We've been able to, the recruiting division has worked so hard and tirelessly to bring those numbers up. But even being shorthanded, these people have gone out and beat the bushes and put bad guys in jail. And statistically speaking, the only thing that curbs crime is putting criminals in jail. And so we saw with the influx of population here in Midland, I mean, you can argue that it's doubled in the last few years. And, you know, the census is completely off. But we've city numbers kind of look like, reflect probably about 200,000 people residing here. And so, and that's not just daytime movement. That's actually occupying dwellings. Well, when you look at that number as compared to the number of officers that are on the streets, the fact that we saw a 0.2% increase in crime last year between 2022 and 2023, that's pretty amazing with the number of officers we have. Because national average, they're looking at wanting 2.5 officers per thousand. Well, we're way less than 1 per thousand.
Right.
So that's one of the things I'm most proud of is the devotion, dedication that these men and women have committed.
You know, anytime somebody takes a new job and leaves and moves on, there's always that look back on, I wish we could have accomplished this. Do you have any of those moments where you're like, this is still left undone, or I wish we could have pushed over the hill at this one thing?
I wish we could get our numbers up way over, you know, the allocated number. Right now, we're allocated 195 officers, and we're resting about 170, and we're moving that needle up, or the people who are out there actively beating the bushes and getting good recruits. I would like to increase that number exponentially. You know, let's say 2 officer per 1,000 populace. Let's say we have, you know, 180,000 people conservatively. Well, that's 360 officers, right?
Right.
If you're going 2 per 1,000, we're way under that. So to think of what we could do with that number of officers it's unbelievable.
What about equipment?
You know, equipment. We've been really good on equipment, and that's one of the things. You know, you asked earlier what changes I've seen over the course of my career.
Right.
Technology is just crazy now. I mean, when I started, we wrote reports on paper with a pen, or you went into the office and typed them on a manual typewriter. And now there's onboard computers, and they have direct connect to the system, and they input directly into the system and can auto-populate. You know, vests are a lot lighter and safer now. When I wore them, they were all metal, and it was heavy, and you know, and the equipment is a lot better than it was when I started, but it's also more expensive, and you know, you kind of got to spend money to make money.
Yeah. So you're moving to Lubbock next month, June. Starting there, what are you looking forward to?
Wow, the excitement of it, I guess. You know, not that there's not challenges here. Every day's a challenge in some form or fashion. It's going to be interesting to step into a role where I don't know anybody. You know, as head of an agency, and I'm looking around going, yeah, we've never met.
Who do you lean on?
Yeah, well, not only that, but I can walk through the halls of MPD, and I know everybody. I mean, I either grew up with them through the agency, or I've seen them grow up, or I hired them. I was part of the hiring, you know. So it's going to be interesting learning faces and people in different culture. Every police department has a different culture. I'm excited about that. I'm going to miss these people. These are my family.
Right.
This is my home. But yeah, that's going to be that's going to be the excitement, I guess, is just getting
the newness of the location
Yeah.
and stuff. I'm assuming that every city has problems, and so Lubbock's going to have their problems, but they've got you coming in to do that. Midland's going to have our problems, and we've got a new person coming in. Do you know how does that process work? Who will be stepping into your role?
Is an interim position. It'll be Deputy Chief Greg Snow. He's been with the department 25 years, risen up through the ranks. Greg's one of our deputy chiefs over he was as of yesterday over the Investigative Services Bureau, which is detectives, and now he's stepping in an interim role. So his job is to keep the ship going the direction that they need it to go. As far as the process is concerned, I'm not involved in it, but I would assume that they're going to do a nationwide search, probably using a search firm, collect potential candidates and weed them out, and hopefully find the very best. And I hope it's somebody a hell of a lot better than I was.
Well, your interview with Lubbock, I think, was a nationwide search, and you know, my only context of police growing up was like watching Beverly Hills Cop and Chips, you know, and all those shows and stuff. What is an interview to become chief of police like?
Well, for mine, both as the chief here, you know, I went through the process here just like everybody else, and the one in Lubbock, there's a series of interviews. So you have different groups that you speak with. For Lubbock, one group was made up of the city manager, deputy city manager, the fire chief, and a representative from SGR, the search firm.
Right.
A couple other folks. And so that's one level. And then the Officers Association members. So they're a kind of command cadre. There was a meeting with them. And then it was with the mayor and the city manager exclusively. So, and then there was the meet and greet with the community, where basically you have the four final candidates standing in different corners of a room, and people are just coming in and mingling and asking you questions, kind of
Wow.
kind of throwing the hardballs at you, and you're like, whoa, okay. And
How did he answer that
yeah,
question?
what the guy over there say? Yeah. So it's I would say it's challenging, but it's also a lot of fun because if you've been in this game long enough, and it's not really a game, but if you've been in the job long enough, you should know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I was either able to regurgitate enough information that I've learned over the years, or I faked it well enough. I guess.
Wow. What do you think's the biggest misconception to the community about police officers?
They have a whole lot of time on their hands to sit around and do nothing.
Eat donuts and
Eat donuts.
write
We all eat
their
donuts.
reports and-
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception. I don't think it's citizen wide, but there's always going to be this speculation of bias-based policing or, systemic racism. And I got to be honest with you, if you put 10 police chiefs in a room, they couldn't figure out where to go to lunch. They darn sure can't figure out how to inappropriately target a specific group based on demographics.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell people, especially with what we've dealt with over the last few years, a resurgence of, cops are all racist, they're all biased, and they're all
Right,
targeting
right.
specific people, to say that you have to step back for a moment and be objective, say, what would it benefit us? Our job is to curb crime. We're just looking for criminals. The race,
Right.
the ethnicity, the origin has no bearing on it. We're just looking for people who commit crimes. And so I think when you put it in proper context, I think most people who have some common sense go, well, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Sure.
Because with all the negativity that we incur just because of our profession, why would we make it worse on ourselves by,
Adding that other
employing
element,
bias?
yeah.
Employing bias.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people don't quite get that. I think because we are the most visible representation of government, they think we're all, we're the Gestapo and we're the Communist Party and the
There's a hidden
KGB.
agenda.
Yeah, there's a hidden agenda. I love that. I love hearing how there's some kind of hidden agenda, and we have these meetings in the Star Chamber and figure out,
Right.
we're going to do the
There's
bidding.
a Star Chamber?
Oh yeah,
Really?
well, I've
Wow.
been looking for
Where
it. I
is
haven't found
Yeah.
it, but
I wanna go to that.
Yeah, and there, we're doing the bidding of the most wealthy and influential, and that's absolutely not
Yeah.
true. No cop cares about that. I've got 90% of my department has no idea who's on the city council. They just don't. They don't have time. They don't pay attention. They were out working. They don't have.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Their
pays.
job is to put criminals,
It's to protect.
stop crime, and protect the city.
That's it. Protect good people from bad people.
Yeah.
That's what we say.
Well, we've talked a lot about your role here and going to Lubbock and what's going on in Midland. I want to wrap things up. Last two questions on you.
Okay.
So just like we're sitting at this table having this conversation, who would you invite to sit at your table that you would allow to pour into you? Like, who do you listen to?
Obviously you gotta listen to your wife because she's been around long enough. She's dealt with it, so she's usually pretty even keel. Now, she tries to take the safer road, and I'm not that guy, so there's a little bit of consternation there. I listen to my dad a lot. He died back a year ago this June, and having been in law enforcement, and he had risen up through the ranks in the Border Patrol, and he knew what it incurred and the things you dealt with. So I relied on him heavily. Deputy Chief Jerry Compton, who was kind of my mentor growing up in the department. He had been my supervisor at different points. And then when I made deputy chief, he was a deputy chief as well. And he taught me a whole lot about being a good cop, but being a good man, and learning how to deal with your people and how to try and make them happy, how to encourage them, how to mentor them, and then how to discipline them when you had to. And that's the hard part, is you got to figure out you're not everybody's friend, but you can be friendly.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and so, and it was Chief Compton who always told me you punish the act, not the person. So you can praise somebody in one moment and then punish them in the next. It's dependent on the act.
That's a good word.
Don't make it personal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last question. Again, thank you for what you've done for our community, and we appreciate that. And thank you for serving. What do you want to be known for?
Oh wow. Well, I think everybody wants to be known as this upstanding, great human being, but I'll take being a good cop. Hopefully, being a good father. I don't know how well I'm doing at that. We'll figure that out later. I will say I have 2 wonderful kids. That's probably because of my wife and in spite of me rather than because of me. I really want to be known as somebody who was fair and who always did the right thing, no matter what the repercussions were.
Great word. Great word. Seth Herman, everybody, Chief of Police, formerly at Midland. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for joining with us this week. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share on all of our channels, and we will see you guys next week.
Elevate your operation with Performance Chemical Company, the pioneers in redefining chemical solutions for the oil and gas industry in the Permian Basin. Unveiling groundbreaking ideas since 2017, our dry chemistry plant stands as a testament to innovation. Our products and services revolutionize water treatment, production, midstream, and saltwater disposals. We're your strategic partners in optimizing investments, slashing operating expenses. Performance Chemical Company. How you get there matters.